Welcome to The Valley's Voice, Arizona Live's Legal Truths.
Hello and welcome to The Valley's Voice, Arizona Lives and Legal Truths. I'm your host, Travis Meltzer, founder and managing attorney at Valley Injury Law. Today on The Valley's Voice, we're joined by an artist whose work speaks before you ever read a caption. Adam Vigil, known to many as ABOMB the Artist, is a Valley-based creator whose art lives at the intersection of emotion, identity, and raw expression. Adam's work isn't just visual, it tells stories, challenges perspective, and reflects the lived experiences behind the canvas. From street art to studio pieces, his journey is about authenticity, resilience, and using creativity as a voice when words fall short. Today, we're talking about the art, the hustle, and what it means to create with intention in a world that's always watching. Adam, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, man. No, look, I know we've been kind of chatting for a while to connect, whether it's through your art and business. And so I appreciate this is the first time that we're really able to get together. So, before we get into the art itself, how did you get into art? And when did ABOMB the Artist kind of become your identity?
Art has always been a part of my life. My mom used to keep us inside, out of trouble. We grew up in a tough neighborhood, so she always gave me, all the tools I needed to create. And then it wasn't until I got older where I got to go outside and, we see the walls, you see the world, you see how things are, perceived as a young Latino Chicano in Arizona. And, just to see where we were at, raised up in like I said, pretty violent neighborhood. So then I saw graffiti. I was outside. I seen the graffiti and my neighbor had a huge wall. My dad had a bunch of paint and they all said, go for it. And I just started there in the early 80s, and I think it was around when I hit 7th grade, I was in my science class and my teacher seeing me fall asleep on my desk because I was up all night painting, Mr. Scott, and he was talking about splitting atoms and all these, what we were discussing in science. And he walks over and as I'm falling asleep on my desk and he slams, goes, what do you get when you get two atoms together or split an atom? Is like you get atom bombs. And he slammed the book on the desk, woke me up, everybody laughed. So that was my nickname starting at 7th grade. Oh, wow. Just atom bomb, ABOMB, turned into ABOMB the Artist.
Yeah, that's an awesome story, man. And it's nice to hear that despite, the rough neighborhood upbringing, few people that I've talked to in your situation have that supportive parents that really support, especially when you're talking about creativity, which it sounds like you were lucky enough to do. And so was there a moment beyond your teacher in science class waking you up? Was there a moment when really, art shifted from a passion to what I would say a calling based on what I've seen?
Yeah, it was just being, born in the early 80s or being born in the 70s and, growing up in the early 80s to be, witness the beginning of hip hop. That was a huge thing for me because it was always art and coloring and the kid stuff. But when I saw graffiti and I saw the hip hop, the music, and just influenced by that, and it was just, that changed it for me. I had a friend of mine who kind of pioneered it for me. He was from New York and he came down and it was Per One was his name. And he was graffitiing in canals back off 75th Avenue in like Indian School area. And there was these big empty canals. And I was riding my bike through there one day being a kid. And I left a grown up because I saw that. And I was like, that's it. I'm going to just paint. And, he turned me on to painting. I kept going, got to know, it's like we're there, one of the pioneers in Arizona that was, just the beginning of hip hop. We were starting to create wherever we could. And, it just turned into a passion. It was just something that I couldn't get enough of. And, I was a full-time artist for some time, And I just didn't like the starving artist syndrome because I understand why they say that, because if you're an artist, you're passionate about what you do. So, I always keep a real job, always, stay focused. And, I try to let the creativity come out of me after work. Cause I felt like when I was a full-time artist, I was focusing all day on what do I got to create? What do I got to create? What do I got to do to feed my family? And it was just overwhelming. But when you have another job, you're not worrying about that. Your bills are covered. You're working from a state of abundance. And then your mind is freed up to get away from work to create. And, it balances itself all out. So, it's just been, since, like I said, the early 80s was a great thing for me with hip hop. And it kind of changed my life to just the music, the colors, and, the dance, and just all the expressions of it just really opened me up to see where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do.
Yeah. No, that story's amazing. And I think you're right. It's interesting to see someone like yourself, I wouldn't say take a step back, but take a step back into quote unquote real job. So you don't lose the passion. Not that you did, but I could see how when you turn passion into a job, it puts pressure where pressure wasn't.
Oh yeah,
And
it's not fun anymore. It's you're relying on your creativity, and that's the biggest creativity killer. It's
yeah,
just like you got to go out and have experiences and do other things, and to be able to get the perspective you need to come back and create a situation.
exactly. No, it's great. And I think, I mean, you kind of answered this question already, with you derive a lot of your style from, at least the beginning of your style, from 80s hip hop into the 90s. But how would you describe your artistic style to someone seeing your work for the first time?
It's just the one thing because I'm so graffiti influenced, and graffiti was such a big culture with lettering and different 3D style letters, and it was it's all great art. But I've always been a character driven artist because a character can show emotion. You can paint a picture and let that character see what he was feeling. So it's just for me, it was just I mean being able to tell a story like you on your intro, just telling a story with your art, and you don't even need to explain it to somebody. They can just see it and be like, oh well, damn, that person was feeling this and that person was feeling that. But now as an artist, I think my dynamic of when my finer art that I have, my oil paintings, my acrylics, and the other stuff I do at home, and not to mention murals, but just more of my finer art. It's just like I want to relay the message as an artist who is creating from a point of positivity and happiness and joy. So when you buy one of my pieces of art, you know that my grandkids were running around the house. Where the smell like tortillas in the kitchen. That we're having a good time. There's music playing. We're all in the middle of it all while I'm painting. So life is going on. Everybody's happy. Everybody's good. And that's the kind of energy that I want you to take home when you purchase my art, is to be able to, you know, know that value's there, that you're getting something with positive energy. And I got friends that create from a place a whole opposite of that. They want the loud crazy music, they want violence, they're telling the story of negativity. My situations are always pretty happy. I don't like to deal with current like politics and other situations. I just want you to focus on happiness. And my really what my message is there's so many bad things happening in the world, but there's so many good things. What do you choose to focus on?
Yeah.
And that's what it
No.
is. Like, look at something and disappear in it, and just see what's your perspective of my art. And that's what I like to do, is just create a narrative by how I feel and how you feel about my energy coming from me and through my art.
Yeah. No, it's honestly, that it describes a lot for me and explains a lot from somebody who's been admiring your art from afar for a while. And it's unique because it's uniquely you, and also the emotion behind it. You can see it. Honestly, it sounds silly to say out loud, but you can really see what, I wouldn't say what you were dealing with at the time or not dealing with at the time, but at the very least, I've seen most. I mean, it's all happiness. It's a lot of your murals. I know. I think I saw one recently. It was probably around Halloween. The
Yeah.
trick or treaters in the in the lowrider, and
That was for
yeah.
my daughters. My daughters and my brother are born on Halloween. So the
There you
the
go.
the Bride of Frankenstein is my daughter that I
Oh,
drew.
that's
And then
funny.
the guy driving the car was my brother. So that was just kind
Oh,
of
that's awesome, man. No,
yeah.
and that's exactly. So that's the thing. There's the familial connection beyond just positivity. So that's amazing. And yeah, I mean, I don't deal with politics either, but it's nice to see some positivity in this world, and I appreciate you bringing it. So, how much of your work is planned versus, I wouldn't say like by the wayside, but instinctual? Like, do you plan what you're about to paint? Do you just kind of approach? What do you do?
So the majority of my work is planned at some point, but there's a level of inspiration involved. Sometimes you're just somewhere and you see it and it'll go off like a flash, and it'll just take a picture in my head, and I'll get home and it's like my obligation to get it out, and I sketch it, and then from sketch we'll go to canvas, go to a mural, whatever it turns into from there, and it's just like it could be the smallest thing. Like I just love, being in, Arizona, just the scenery, and, you might just be at the right place at the right time. I have the wonderful privilege to live in Levine, and we have a lot of horse traffic. So one of my latest murals was, South Mountains with, three vaqueros riding through, the neighborhood. And it's beautiful out here. It's like we're in the city, a small town away from the city. That's why
Yeah.
that's the best part about living out here. And then, I'm right down the street from South Central, where the lowrider culture is at, and the lowrider culture in general in Arizona, but to be able to be a part of that. So there's a lot of inspiration that comes from that. And it's like I said, it's just a click. It's like, boom, all of a sudden there's a flash, and then you're obligated to create. Like, you're the vessel, God gave you this talent, use that, get it out, and let people appreciate what you see, what we see through you.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. I think as an artist, it's something that I always envy, that you can look at something and then essentially show everyone what you're seeing, but through your lens. And to me, that's something that I can only do in some ways through writing, but not the same. It's
Yeah.
not as universally appreciated, to say the least. But
Right.
no, I, I appreciate what you do, and it's amazing. And I think you said it right in the beginning with your positivity, and some of your other friends or artists, treat art as survival to some extent, or a way to deal with violence or negativity. Many artists even talk about art as therapy. Does that resonate with you?
Oh yeah, 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 definitely. I mean, I was in the music industry since the late '80s as well. Just being involved with touring and some. We had a couple hip hop albums out, and but it's just like that's even an expression. Like to be able to, you know, describe a situation to help people relate to it and that have been through those same scenarios and provide some sort of outlet. It's always a great opportunity to do that, and especially just like art is everything. Like I appreciate poetry. I appreciate like dancing, and like I said, the hip hop. I guess it was hip hop that got me because it just owes all these form of expression,
Yeah.
and that's just the best part about what we do is just everybody's own individual interpretation of their life, how they see it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, art is, what do they say, the universal language, and
Yes, sir.
music, well, I think they say it about music, but it goes to all art too. You
Yeah,
don't
that's
need
why
to
there's
speak.
hieroglyphics, man. They're painting pictures, telling the story. We can read that better than we can read some of the other things.
Oh, I mean, let's be real. You have a whole bunch of people speaking English that no clue what the hell they're talking about half the time. So I agree. And so no, it's amazing to see art as a language and as something that helps people get through things or get past items. So has there been a moment, through your journey as an artist that felt where creating felt heavy? And if it did, how did you kind of get through that?
Yeah, you know what? There was one time I was been in the music industry. I've been living back and forth from Atlanta to LA and just, making moves, doing the music thing, touring and just managing groups, and I wasn't paying attention to my art anymore. And I stopped doing that. I wasn't writing. I was just, doing my job, and then, I winded up getting having one of my first son, my oldest son, and just wanted to focus on being a provider and a dad. And I just was focusing on work and I wasn't paying attention to nothing else. And I got a regular job doing commercial glass. And one day on the job, I had an eye injury where I had stabbed my left eye out with a screwdriver and pulled it out myself. Emergency came, everything came. But the second that screwdriver went through my eye, everything I couldn't do with my art flashed before my eyes. Like they say, those things happen, and it definitely did. And it was one of those things to where, you know, it put it all in perspective because I hadn't been using my talent. I've been neglecting my talent. It's like I was questioning my talent. And then I go through the first surgery. They clean my eye up. They had to insert a gas bubble into my eye so it would hold the stitches that were in the back of my eye where the screwdriver almost went through in place. And that gas bubble had to be at a certain position. So I had to sleep face down, eat face down. My whole day for 3 months was my face down so that gas bubble would hold those stitches in place.
Yeah.
And a buddy of mine that, my buddy Slick, one of my mentors, he was one of the OG graffiti artists out here too. Artist, he's just an artist, but he came to my house, brought me some playing cards, a box of pencils, and a stack of paper. He was like, there you go. So all I did was draw and write music. And the first thing I drew was, it was a successful project for a homebrew back at the beginning of homebrews. And it just went from there. It just, I said, I'm not gonna neglect my talent anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna just go and go and go and go. So every day, every week I'm trying to do something, and I do. I'm painting, I'm being creative, I'm sketching. It's just I don't ever neglect it anymore.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. I mean, obviously, I wish that it didn't take a screwdriver,
All right.
but
Exactly.
yeah, no, that's amazing. And to find, I wouldn't say find, I just re-identify the passion and understand what your life would be like without it.
Hmm.
Is an
Sure.
amazing, way to really push you to do something. And that's incredible. And, obviously, based on my opinion anyway, you made the right decision to continue your artwork. And I appreciate it as a consumer. And so, how do you feel with your art? Now, you started as more, influenced by graffiti artwork and street art, but you still do, you indicate fine art or, oil paintings and things like that. How do you feel, your art kind of sits at that line between street art and fine art, or how do you bridge the two?
You know what? I never try to categorize myself. I said I've always said, and I've always known that there was so many different types of artists, and then people go through phases. You'll see artists throughout history do different works. So my job is just anytime I see something that's inspirational and I get that flash, I got to create it, no matter what it is. So I have a deep love for my culture, the Chicano culture, and portray that in a lot of my work, and I have different shows leading up to that. So there's, we'll have a show about that, and then I'll have my celebration of life shows, which is going to be, it's all calacas, which is Day of the Dead, the skulls, the sugar skulls, and everything you see. It's just my interpretation of that. And then I have my fine art, which is, I had the opportunity to go to Mexico City with my family and see some just great, just inspirational women. And I created a show called Los Mujeres, and it's just all the women who run the markets in Mexico City. And that's been currently a work in progress for the last couple of years. And it's just, not being in Mexico, not getting the kind of inspiration you do when you're there,
Yeah.
but, I still create, and I'm doing collaborations with State 48 this year. We're going to launch another one in this February 28th at the Arizona Super Show. So we're going to do that. I got other projects I'm working on with promotional programs. We're going to show the Chicano show on March 15th, Sunday, with Owasa. It's going to be at Walter Studios on 7th Ave and Roosevelt, and that's going to be a great show celebrating the Chicano communities, celebrating the Chicano love story, that just, the trials and tribulations we go through as a culture, and we forgive and we move on, and, we support each other and we love each other. And so, it's just, there is no bridging those. It's just one. I am the bridge. It's just like everything's on me. So it's just when you see an artist, it's me. You know what I mean? And it's just like, you'll know. So sometimes I sign my art different. My fine art, I sign A Vigil, A Vigil, and some of the art I sign ABOMB. So it's just like my Chicano stuff is so known in the community. So I sign that ABOMB because that's who I am in the community. But as an overall artist, to achieve new levels of where I want to be, and create art that's, worthy of, these, collectors and everybody else who participates in it. And there's a lot that goes into the thought of it, because it's just like you're dealing with the more sophisticated buyer. They want to see textures, they want to see colors, they want to see different textiles and mediums and what you're creating with. And it's great for me, and it's a challenge sometimes to try to figure things out and how it works. To what does my buyer, who is my buyer, who is my collector, what do they want to see? And sometimes we create from that perspective too, but for the most part, it's just always been like, okay, there's the idea. Now let's make it a little more interesting.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. Yeah, I think it's always interesting. It's very hard, particularly modern art. It's hard to categorize it, and especially for someone like yourself that does it all, whether it's street art, murals, the beautiful oil painting behind you, or whatever it might be. It's cool to just kind of see. You're right. I think your personality and what you bring to the artwork is really the bridge. Yeah, it's awesome. So what's next for you creatively?
We should collab on something. We should do a shirt or something for the company, man. Just be able to do something to collab, and get it out there, let people wear it and wear that art and show what you do for us as an artist. You know what I mean? For me to be on this show it's a great opportunity. You know what I mean? Your range of people and everybody that you work with and that you communicate with is definitely new to my Rolodex, and be able to see it. So I would love to do something where we can all sit down and wear it. That'd be a great project for me.
Done and done. I know we've been talking around it for a while. I feel like over the last year or two. I think the first time I had seen your artwork may have been the first collab you had with State 48 a year or two ago.
Yeah, that's actually, we're on number 5 this year. This is gonna be the 5th year we've been working together, so we're doing a nice little rollout for that as well. So that's what I got coming up. If I'm going to plug something, that's what I got creatively going on is State 48, February 28th. And we're going to be launching our 5th design. We're actually doing a t-shirt design. We're doing a pair of workers overalls. We're doing a pair of, we were going to do socks. We held off on the socks. We're doing a lapel pin, and we're doing a hat, and we're doing stickers and all the good stuff that we give away at the events for that.
Well, like I didn't buy enough shit before. I will be. No, I appreciate it. I love your art. Like I said, I like what you did at the brewery recently. The mural down there is amazing.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Santa Cerveza. Is that what it's called?
Sana.
Sana. Damn.
La cervecería.
Yeah, I see it all the time. So you've done great work. And so, before, we let you go, we're just a couple minutes done here, but, where can people see your work or support what you're doing?
You can see my work on my Instagram, ABOMB the Artist. That's where I usually host all my things, but I do have a website where you can purchase a lot of my materials. Like I sell shirts, stickers, sticker packs, all Chicano driven stuff. But a lot of the stuff that I sell on the website is for, we like to donate. We like to donate to teachers. We take portions of the proceeds, large portions of the proceeds, and we give back to the community. We do, I say we because it's my family's that one's helping me ship it and pack it and all that good stuff. So you can see it there, abombtheartist.com. Go on there. We're actually going to do a scholarship giveaway, and we're looking for people to match scholarships. So we're going to help some Valley teenagers that are going in. They're about to graduate in April, and we're going to have some scholarships for them. And hopefully, we get some people to come out and match. And we're going to do. I'm designing a T-shirt. That shirt will sell. The portions of the proceeds will go to, creating those scholarships that I'm working with other foundations and nonprofits that we can get it all flowed through and make sure that it's done correctly with these kids getting what they need.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. Well, I'm sure I'll definitely be reaching out to talk to you about that. So that sounds amazing, man. Yeah, no, I'm excited for you. Well, before I let you go, I appreciate the time. I'll do a quick fire round. First thing that comes to mind, it's kind of a this or that kind of questions. And we'll see how this goes. So studio or street?
Street.
Yeah. Music while creating or silence?
Music.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's probably it depends kind of answer, but
it does. It's always music, but it goes with whatever I'm painting.
Exactly. No, I'm with you. A mural or a canvas?
The older I get, canvas. I need to sit still.
A lot of less physical work.
Yeah, ladders.
Yeah, or shorter walls. Just build walls smaller.
Right? It's a lot of work.
Yeah. And then what do you think? I think you've mentioned it before, but I'll ask again. What's your biggest creative influence?
My biggest creative influence is our culture. My culture, the Hispanic. I'm not gonna say I'd see the Phoenician culture, just the way how we live in the desert and how people adapt to, just the trials and tribulations of living in the desert. Man, we got the monsoons, we got wildfires, we got the heat 99% of the time.
All of a sudden, and
yeah, I think that's a big inspiration.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. No, it gives your art a uniquely local feel is probably the best way I could describe it, where it's not something I can just say, hey, it's an Arizona artist. It just is. But no, it's uniquely Phoenix. And so I commend you for it, and you've really captured it. So last question, one word that describes your art right now.
One word that describes my art right now is happiness.
There you go.
Because it just makes me happy to paint. It just makes me happy to paint.
Amen. And honestly, that's what the world needs right now, to say the least. So,
yes, sir.
Yeah, man. Well, I appreciate it, Adam. Adam, thank you for sharing your story and giving us a deeper look at the heart behind the art. Your work reminds us that creativity isn't just something we see, it's something we feel. To our listeners, take a moment to check out Adam's work and support the artists in our community who are brave enough to create honestly. And remember, if you've been in an accident, visit azvalleyinjurylaw.com or find us on Instagram at valleyinjurylaw. You can find our guest, Adam, on Instagram, ABOMB the Artist, and abombtheartist.com. So be sure to like, subscribe, leave a review if you've enjoyed today's podcast. We appreciate you all joining us on The Valley's Voice.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.